Every evening, in millions of homes, the same battle begins. Your child sits down at the table. The homework folder opens. And within minutes, something shifts. There's sighing. There's stalling. There's a meltdown over a single math problem that should take 90 seconds. You call it laziness. You call it defiance. But the real answer is far stranger than either of those words. It's not in your child's character. It's in their brain. And once you see what's actually happening inside that small skull every night at the kitchen table, you'll never look at homework time the same way again. Start with the story everyone tells. A kid avoids homework because they're stubborn. Or distracted. Or undisciplined. That story feels true because it's the one most adults grew up hearing about themselves. But it doesn't hold up under a microscope. Children aren't avoiding effort in general. They build elaborate Lego cities for hours without being asked. They memorize the entire roster of their favorite video game without flashcards. They will replay the same level 40 times until they beat it. That's not laziness. That's focus, applied somewhere else entirely. So the real question isn't why your child avoids effort. It's why your child avoids this specific kind of effort, at this specific time, under these specific conditions. The answer starts with a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. This is the region just behind your forehead. It's in charge of planning, self-control, and pushing through boring tasks for a future reward. In adults, this region is fully wired. In children, it's still under construction. Neuroscientists know this part of the brain doesn't finish developing until the mid-20s. That means a 7-year-old staring at a worksheet is trying to use a tool that quite literally isn't finished being built yet. Asking a child to sit still and self-motivate through 20 repetitive math problems is a little like asking someone to sprint on a leg that's still healing. They might manage it. But it will hurt, and it will be slow. Then there's the question of why. Psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan spent decades studying what actually drives human motivation, and their research became known as self-determination theory. Their core finding was simple, and a little unsettling for anyone handing out assignments. People are far more motivated by tasks they feel ownership over than tasks handed to them with no say in the matter. Choice matters. Autonomy matters even in small doses. And homework, by its very design, removes both. A worksheet doesn't ask what a child wants to learn. It doesn't ask how they want to learn it. It simply appears, with a deadline attached. To a developing brain that's wired to crave some sense of control, that absence of choice doesn't just feel mildly unpleasant. It registers as something closer to a threat. Here's where it gets stranger. Researcher Harris Cooper at Duke University spent years analyzing decades of homework studies, searching for a clear link between homework and academic achievement. What he found surprised a lot of educators. For elementary school children, the correlation between homework and improved test scores was close to zero. Not negative. Not strongly positive. Essentially flat. The benefits of homework only became measurable once students reached high school, and even then, the gains tapered off well before the workload did. So why does homework still happen every night, in every grade, with roughly the same intensity? Tradition. Habit. A belief that more output must equal more learning. But the developing brain doesn't always agree with tradition. Stress plays its own role here, and it's a bigger one than most parents realize. Stanford researcher Denise Pope, through her work with the Challenge Success Project, surveyed thousands of students about their experience with daily homework loads. She found that excessive homework was strongly linked to elevated stress, disrupted sleep, and even physical symptoms like headaches and stomachaches in some students. Stress isn't just an emotional inconvenience to a child's brain. It activates the amygdala, the brain's built-in alarm system, and floods the body with cortisol. When that alarm switches on, the prefrontal cortex, the very part needed for focused, patient work, temporarily goes quiet. The brain reallocates its resources towards survival, not subtraction problems. In other words, the more anxious a child becomes about homework, the less capable their brain literally becomes of doing it. The meltdown at the table isn't a child refusing to try. It's a brain that has classified the moment as a threat instead of a challenge, and is reacting accordingly. So picture what's actually happening at that kitchen table, all at once. A brain still under construction. A task offering zero choice. A nervous system already worn down by a full day of school, transitions, and social effort. And then a parent, exhausted themselves, asking for one more hour of calm, compliant focus. Of course there's friction. It would be strange if there wasn't. Now here's the twist that changes everything. The instinct, when a child resists homework, is to add more structure. More rules. More consequences. Sit here until it's done. No screens until the worksheet is finished. But based on what self-determination theory tells us, tightening control is often the exact opposite of what a developing brain needs in that moment. Stricter control reduces the sense of autonomy even further, which increases resistance, which raises stress, which shuts down the very cognitive system needed to do the work in the first place. It becomes a loop that feeds itself. The harder a parent pushes, the more tightly the door closes. What actually helps, according to the research, looks almost too simple to trust. Small amounts of genuine choice. Letting a child decide which subject to start with. Letting them choose where they sit, or whether they take a 5-minute break first. Even something as small as picking the color of pen can register, neurologically, as a small return of control. It won't erase every struggle. But it lowers the threat signal just enough for the prefrontal cortex to come back online and actually get to work. There's also the matter of timing. A brain fresh out of 7 hours of school has often already spent most of its daily supply of self-regulation. Researchers sometimes describe this capacity as a limited resource, one that depletes through the day with every act of sitting still, raising a hand, waiting a turn, resolving a playground disagreement. By 3 in the afternoon, that resource is often running low. Asking for another hour of focused, low-reward output right after school is, for many children, asking at the worst possible biological moment of the day. A short window of movement, food, or unstructured play before homework begins isn't a delay tactic, even though it can look like one. It's often the fastest route to actually getting the work done well. None of this means homework is evil, or that children should never face a task they don't enjoy. Life is full of necessary, unglamorous effort, and learning to push through difficulty matters. But there's a meaningful difference between teaching a child to work through something hard, and accidentally teaching their nervous system that learning itself is a threat to brace against. One builds resilience over time. The other can quietly build avoidance that outlasts the worksheets by years. Think about your own relationship with tasks you didn't choose. A form to fill out for no clear reason. A meeting you weren't consulted on but still have to sit through. Notice how your own motivation flickers, even as an adult with a fully wired prefrontal cortex and decades of practice pushing through boredom. That flicker your child feels every night at the table isn't weakness, and it isn't new. It's the same circuitry. Just younger. Just rawer. Just less able to hide the struggle behind a composed adult face. So the next time the homework folder opens and the sighing starts, the slow shoulders, the sudden urgent need for a snack or a bathroom break, look a little closer before reaching for a consequence. That's not a character flaw sitting across the table from you. It's a developing brain doing exactly what developing brains do when faced with low choice, high stress, and a tank that's already close to empty. And somewhere underneath the avoidance is the very same curiosity that builds Lego cities for hours and replays video game levels 40 times in a row, just waiting for the right conditions to come back online. Every evening, in millions of homes, the same battle begins. But now you know it was never a battle about laziness at all.